Yes, ladies and gentlemen, Hypnotic Wonderland. All right, let's briefly cover some of the oil spill updates and take your phone calls. And again, some are looking at this like it's the end of the world. It's odd. It's strange. The Knowing came out last year, and many people are saying that this movie, in a weird, strange, predictive programming way, predicted the Gulf disaster. But what we've got here is this information. Almost 70 miles of the Louisiana coast is soaked with oil. That's more land than the seashores of Maryland and Delaware combined. The governor there said Monday, after the Secretary of the Interior and Secretary of Homeland Security were flown over the devastated coast, Napolitano said the federal government would disperse it, boom it, and burn it. Yes, toxic chemicals. Corrects it 9,500 to keep more oil from coming ashore. There's concerns right now about hurricanes moving the oil ashore. Federal officials delivered messages similar to Napolitano's, but none wanted to address an incident that occurred last week when BP and the Coast Guard abandoned 44 boats loaded with booms on Louisiana's shores as thick black oil flooded into the marshlands. We have other reports about CBS, ABC being threatened with arrest for filming by people, private security working directly for BP. Same thing with the police. In the next report, BP spill spreads to Pensacola, Florida. White beaches blotted with oily tar balls. The BP plague has spread to Pensacola. Tourists and locals woke up Friday to disgusting oily tar balls in their once pristine white sand beaches. They knew oil from the ruptured rig deep in the Gulf of Mexico was headed their way. They hoped that somehow they would be spared. Tears were welling up in the eyes of George Strain, a retired teacher from New Orleans, as he and his wife Connie surveyed the ruined beach. BP chief Tony Hayward sold shares weeks before oil spill. This is the most interesting article of them all. The chief executive of BP sold about 1.4 million pounds of his shares, this is from the London Telegraph, in the fuel giant weeks before the Gulf of Mexico oil spill caused its value to collapse. That was about a third of his holdings in the company. He sold a third of his holdings in BP. His decision meant he avoided losing more than 423,000 pounds when BP's share price plunged after the oil spill began 6 weeks ago. And now we've got this movie to take a look at. Haven't seen it yet. It's been brought to my attention, called The Knowing, starring Nicolas Cage. And you can actually see the trailer for The Knowing on YouTube. And so this is very important to be aware of. Take a look at the movies they're making today. Machete, a full-on call to action for Mexicans to hack up white people with machetes. When you look at the Cinco de Mayo trailer for Machete, you understand. When you see all of these movies coming out over time and then something manifesting in reality later, it causes you to wonder just a bit as to why certain movies are being made at this time. Red Dawn 2010 is being filmed right now in Detroit. Same city where they're actually bulldozing empty neighborhoods that have been abandoned. Apartment structures. So they're filming the Chinese invasion right now in Detroit, Michigan, and it's set for release in September 2010. Very, very interesting. Now we're going to talk about Brzezinski here in this next segment. By the way, I want to let you know about the YouTube channel, youtube.com/AlexAnswery. It's a way to watch the show online. And of course, share this program with your non-cable viewing, television viewing friends that get all their info simply off of the internet. Brzezinski decries global political awakening during CFR speech. Trilateral Commission co-founder says infighting amongst the elite combined with an awakening of humanity, the awakening of humanity worldwide, is hampering their move towards a one world government structure. Now, who is Brzezinski? Most of you know who he is, at least on the surface level. He's Barack Obama's foreign policy advisor. but many of us have been talking about the crimes of Zbigniew Brzezinski and his connections in multiple secret societies, including the Trilateral Commission, the Bilderberg Group, prior to Obama even coming on the scene. So it was no surprise when he was picked to be Obama's foreign policy advisor. Let's take a look at his bio. Brzezinski was the national security advisor for Carter from 1977 to 1981. In 1988, he endorsed H.W. Bush for president and was co-chair of the H.W. Bush National Security Advisory Task Force. From co-chair of the H.W. Bush National Security Advisory Task Force, I just said that. From 87 to 89, he also served on the H.W. Bush's Foreign Intelligence Advisory Board. Clinton Secretary of State Madeleine Albright was also a student of Brzezinski's. Zbigniew Brzezinski, a CFR member, arch trilateral commissionist, Bilderberger. He's been the evil spirit behind 5 presidents, including Obama, and he's obsessed with one particular thought in mind. The U.S. is to dominate a one world order state type of a structure. The U.S. will lead this one world order. For that purpose, he sees Eurasia as his grand chessboard. That's the name of his book he wrote in 1997, saying we need some sort of a conflict or Pearl Harbor type of event like 9/11 to wage this war with Eurasia. Where the battle is to be won, like any chess player, he starts by occupying the center of the chessboard, Central Asia. He wants peace there, friendly arrangements, in particular with China, if possible, so that he can pursue the goal of his obsession. And by the way, this particular article that I'm reading comes from globalresearch.ca, a great archive of information, a great resource. The purpose of the Trilateral Commission created by him and Rockefeller is to create a world order state by fusing a coming North American Union, at which he is working through the CSIS, the Union for the Mediterranean, and a Far East bloc, which is now being created. And so let's also look at Zbigniew Brzezinski and his relation to China. He funded the Mujahideen in their war against the Russians, not so much because he cared about the Afghans, because he wanted to weaken the Soviet Union. But again, you got to look at how the Soviet Union came to be also as well. Study the Bolshevik Revolution, and you'll find out that Western money, in fact, put Lenin in power to redirect where Russia went from that point on, the Soviet Union, the USSR. These are all things to be aware of when you find out that the military-industrial complex is arming multiple nations, creating fear worldwide so they can make money off of our terror, literally destroying our jobs, destroying our economies, and directing us through their scientifically crafted social engineering programs into the military, into private security, and many, many other places that will yet to be announced. So this is just a brief overview on Zbigniew Brzezinski. He also wrote a book in 1972. It's actually no longer in print, and I think it's at least $60 to buy those on Amazon. He wrote a particular book in 1970, Between Two Ages, America's Role in the Technotronic Era. And in that book, he wrote the following: the technotronic era involves the gradual appearance of a more controlled society. Such a society would be dominated by an elite unrestrained by traditional values. Soon it will be possible to assert almost continuous surveillance over every citizen and maintain up-to-date, complete files containing even the most personal information about the citizen. These files will be subject to instantaneous retrieval by the authorities. And so that was a book that he wrote in 1970 that attracted the attention of David Rockefeller, and that is why he co-founded the Trilateral Commission. And so we also see other things that he's worked on in the past, special projects like selling U.S. infrastructure, like harbors, outsourcing U.S. jobs, giving the Panama Canal to the Chinese, selling infrastructure to the Soviets, the Iranians, the Iraqis, Libya, and of course proposing war with these groups at the exact same time. He nurtured the Taliban and Al-Qaeda and ignored Islamic fundamentalism to a certain degree. Let's go back though and cover some other things as well with Zbigniew Brzezinski. He came to Portland in 2003, and I stood outside